And we're live. Welcome back. It's been a couple weeks since we've seen you guys, but it's another Gimbal Weekly update. For those of you who are traveling out there, just make sure to follow all safety precautions. And if you are in Indiana, definitely keep your phone down. But content provided at the event is for general information only and not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance reference is historical, no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities offered through LPL Financial, a member of FINRA and SIPC. Investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, registered investment advisor, and separate entity from LPL Financial.
Well, good morning. Thanks, Amanda. Hey, do
Can
any
you
of you
hear
guys do you have a car with Apple CarPlay? Anybody have one of those?
I do.
Amanda?
The millennial in me has that.
I tell you what, with this new law in Indiana, putting my phone down, I really want a car with Apple CarPlay. And my wife, the practical one, she said, well, I tell you what, for about $3 we can get this thing that clips onto your air conditioner vent, and then you just press this button called speaker.
That's a good alternative as well.
I thought that was hilarious.
It's like makeshift Apple CarPlay.
Yeah. Well, good to see everybody. And, we were off last week, and I hope that you all had just a great week and a great 4th of July weekend. It's good to be back with you. And stock market always goes and goes and goes. There was a movie back in the day, Wall Street, and one of the lines was, "Money never sleeps, kid." And so we may be out of the office, but the stock market is always going, and it's a fantastic thing to follow along with you guys. So I'm going to start off today by sharing the screen, and well, before that, did we want to give Debbie a chance? I think we talked about this, but I already forgot. Deb, tell us what's going on in your world and with the office in Gimbal.
Okay, well, I can't talk long because these guys just shoot me right off of the screen if I talk too long. So one thing I wanted to tell you is that we spend a lot of time being compliant in this industry, and for you and for us. And I've been in this industry for 25 years now, and it has changed so much. It used to take me tons of time to get ready for an audit, which, by the way, we have an audit coming up at the end of this month. And finally kind of figured out where I could store everything. So when they surprised us with an audit, I would just be ready for it. But this year, it has gotten a lot easier because I can actually scan everything in, send it to them. They have it on file for the future. And going forward, I will just scan things as we get them, and it'll be super easy, I feel like. So that is where we are right now. And so if you see me smiling in the next few weeks, you'll know that everything went good.
If you've ever been to Gimbal Financial World headquarters, Debbie's desk has a bunch of stuff all over it from about 8 to 3:30. And then miraculously, every night it's perfectly clean. And a couple years ago, Deb started to scan stuff into the cloud, into our secure cloud. And I remember just stacks and stacks of stuff. Well, we don't have those stacks of stuff anymore. And so thankfully, technology has allowed us to move faster, more accurately, and securely. And so, big thanks to Deb for that and for compliance efforts. It's all good stuff.
Thanks, Debbie. We're going to send you off into the cloud yourself.
Okay.
She's off into her own cloud. That's hilarious. Well, okay, now we can get to the market. Let's go to the market. I'm going to share my screen with you guys and dive into the NASDAQ. Hey, if you've been on this call once or twice, you've seen this screen, and it's been interesting. Can you see this line I'm drawing here? the NASDAQ has been in an amazing trend, and it's hitting new highs. We had a major sell-off, and then it just V recovery right back up. It's been like rocket fuel. And some of these companies inside the NASDAQ are leading the way, like Amazon and Google and Facebook and Netflix. There's biotech companies in here. But some of the more traditional companies, like the airlines or oil stocks, like, you know, energy stocks, they haven't hit the new highs quite yet. This is the S&P 500. And so there's a long way to go before they get there. The technology stocks have been leading the way. And so for many of you, if you've been paying attention to your portfolios, you may have noticed that we have used some cash positions. Got my notes over here. And I want to share with you a reason why we've been using cash instead of other assets. Take a look at this one with me. I'm going to pull up a 5-year bond. You ready for this, Keith? What do you think this chart's going to look like, Keith?
5-year bond is going to go up, I would suppose.
Oh, man. Check this out. Let's see. There we go. Look at this.
5-year note.
See this?
Is that the interest rate on them, Doug?
Yeah, yeah. And so you can see rates have been coming down, and this has been very interesting to me, because when I first started in the investment business in 1998, I can remember I got a call from a friend of mine's mom, and she said, "Hey, what's your money market paying?" I told her it was paying 5% back in 1998. 5%, that would be like amazing right now. And our money market pays an embarrassing like 0.01. But what it does do is offer some dry powder. It offers some safety. There's some, you know, more traditional assets that tend to work or look like the bond market that we follow. And
hey,
one of the
Doug, you're using foreign language. What in the world is dry powder? Amanda, do you have some dry powder, Amanda? What?
No.
Dry powder? You mean you guys haven't fired up your muzzle loader lately? You mean you guys haven't been making your own ammunition?
Can't say I have.
So evidently these soldiers, when they use their muzzle loaders, their powder would get wet and they couldn't use it. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, man, you're gonna have to like watch the Patriot, or what was that Mel Gibson movie? Is that the Patriot? you have to break out your muzzle loader again.
All right, go back to what you were saying. I'm sorry.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. That's good. But no, just keeping cash ready to go, you know, for opportunity, and also for those muddy, rainy stock market days. And, you know, we have them. We haven't had them for a little while, but we have them, and they're no fun at all. So I switched gears while we were talking. This is the Philadelphia Utility Index. And if you've ever talked with me about stocks, you know I like utility stocks. They're normally real boring, but it's like a monopoly. I mean, who do you write your power and light check to? Everybody does. And so it's a consistent thing. However, these utility stocks normally behave like bonds, not too exciting. Normally you can't make a lot of money off them, but they do pay you a paycheck, which is good. But check it out. These utility stocks perform just like the rest of the stock market did from top to bottom. Terrible. And then their recovery hasn't been that good. In a lot of ways, this is like the bond market. It really hasn't been that stellar, and so we've liked to keep some money in cash, and we think that's a great place for you. I'm going to switch gears one more step here, then we can come back to the market, and I want to share with you guys a investor sentiment that I follow. Well, I thought I would. I must have closed it. Rats. Well, I follow a group called the American Association of Individual Investors. And I like to follow these guys because these are people who are investors in the stock market. And there's a whole association of them that fills out a survey. And this survey asks a question. It says, what do you think is going to happen with the stock market in the next 6 months? And in the next 6 months, it's going to be big. We've got a lot to walk through. We've got COVID. We're going to have an election. We've got company earnings. We've got company revenues. There's so much going on in the next 6 months. And the overwhelming result of the survey has been very bearish, above average, bearish. Now, the bulls have been coming back in slowly, but there's still plenty of pessimism out there. And normally, what that tells people like us is to stay opportunistic. Look for places where you can make money because they're out there. Everybody's scared. They're fearful, but there's opportunities if you're willing to go out there and take a look at them. And so that's what we're doing for you at Gimbal. We're looking for some of those opportunities. And you may have seen that in your portfolio, even in the last couple of weeks, where we've been able to take part of a couple asset classes that we just haven't bought in a long time. So Keith, do you have anything you want to add to on the markets?
Yeah, I was multitasking while you were talking there. I'm going to switch over to my screen and go over some ideas. I've got a mug that somebody gave me that says I don't like big words, but I was going to bring a big word to the conversation today. And I know the word, I just don't ever use the word, but the word is bifurcated, and it basically is what came to my mind when I was thinking about hanging out with everybody today. And that word basically means to split in two, to split into two groups of things. And we look at indices, not indices. Well, we look at indices, see what's going on in the overall market, whether it's small, medium, large-sized companies, U.S., foreign, and then we look at within the markets, what's going on in different industries, so we can see what those things are doing. And then, and even looking at the commodities to see what's really going on out there in the world. And so when I was looking at those charts, and just the only thing that came to my head is this is just split in half. If you're in the wrong place in this market, you're going to think it's a horrible, horrible market. And if you're in the right place, you might think this is the best market that's ever been. And that's true if you're in the right place. We've used that QQQ or the NASDAQ as a place to put money, and that thing is just almost acted like Elon Musk SpaceX. It's almost shot straight up. Well, you showed us what the utilities were doing, and they weren't giving you that same feel. And so I think this market might be one that really causes a lot of concern for people that have been told that asset allocation will protect you. Because if you just split your assets in half with the kinds of assets that people have said you should put your money, well, bonds themselves are going to earn you close to zero right now. So if you put half your money in bonds, you get 0% on that half. And then if you split half between large companies and small companies, that half hasn't given, just having half of it in the NASDAQ and the other half in small companies, you've not seen some stellar kind of performance. So by putting that money in the money market, like you mentioned, Doug, it just says, you know what, we don't have the risk of the bonds, but we've got the opportunities out there. And I just was kind of comparing where you would have seen that kind of split in half perspective. I wrote my notes here. If you thought that the small companies were the place to invest and you moved all your money there in March or April, you haven't really experienced much. And if you put them in the large companies, General Motors, General Electric, Ford, those kind of things, you really haven't seen anything. But if you put them in the NASDAQ where they have kind of the up and coming futuristic companies, you've seen some really good things. Then if
Keith, we tried the small caps here at Gimbal. They were showing a nice little run, and we gave it some time, but then we dashed right back to cash.
And that's what That's what I was looking at, Doug. I was looking on my notes there when we met a couple of weeks ago. Those small companies that measured by the Russell 2000. Last time we hung out with everybody, we were trading at the Russell 2000. Then it was at 1411, and today it's at 1398. So it's not going upward like we like to see for our clients. And so, but it looks like it might be coiling up like a spring, though, Doug. Like we might be able to step back into it here in the next week or so. But
oh, I hope so. I would love to be back in. Those are great places of the market to be. Just there's different seasons. Time to be
let
in
me show
and
you
time
guys the chart here. This is what Doug was showing you just a second here ago on. This is a different view of the utilities. Yeah, this is a utilities investment here. We've got a portfolio that we strive to get dividends for y'all, and it's not doing what like a growth portfolio would do, because these are the kind of companies that would ordinarily be in there. And so if it's not saying that that's a bad portfolio, it's just saying this is what that sort of portfolio is going to look like right now, because for some reason people aren't chasing after the dividend stocks right now, and so there's not a lot of demand in those. But that's just an example of what's happened to utility stocks, and this could just be a short-term situation, and I couldn't find the other one I had in mind. I've got another ETF that gives a flavor, but here's something that is kind of interesting when you compare that. This is a wind energy ETF. And so while the traditional utilities are going down, the market is telling us maybe there's a reason that traditional utilities aren't setting the world on fire. Maybe competition has come, and maybe there's a new sheriff in town, right? We're going to stay with the gun shooting thing. There's a new sheriff in this Western town, and we need to pay attention. And that's what y'all pay us to do, is pay attention to what's changing in the world and try to respond in a productive way on your behalf. So that's bifurcation means this, you can't just throw a dart at a board this time. It's not going to work. It is definitely going to take some selection in this market. What do you think, Doug?
And I love that. I love the new technologies and the future. That's what our lives, that's what investing is all about, is the future. Stuff in the rear view mirror. It can't consume much of our time. What do you got going on, Amanda?
Well, we were talking about seasons and how everything's changing in Indianapolis, or just Indiana. We get all 4 seasons, which is awesome. And everything's always changing here. You know, it was in March, we can get like 40-degree and we can get 80-degree weather. But right now we are in an amazing summer season where there's a lot of movement, a lot of enjoyment. People are living life. And I was fortunate enough to spend my 4th of July up in Wisconsin. And the drive was 6 hours, and the amount of bikes, the amount of trailers, the amount of pop-ups, the amount of RVs I saw on the road was really encouraging. It's just people are getting out there. They're not really, coronavirus is still relevant, but people are getting out there, doing their own thing, and just enjoying what summer has to offer. And whether you're going to Montana, whether you're trying to go out east, I don't know, but it's a great time to be outside, to be with friends and be with family. I'm encouraged. I know, Keith, you might be heading somewhere. Who knows? You can pick up and just go anywhere.
We are rolling out of town in a couple hours, and you'll have to wait to see where we go, because I don't even know yet, but we're out of here in 2 hours.
That's the beauty of no flights happening right now, really. That's the beauty of
Doug and I were talking before we kicked this thing off that the economy is really strange. I went to meet a client over on the west side of Indianapolis, near Brebeuf, earlier this week, and as I was driving west on 86th Street, I was kind of sad as I was watching the strip malls and seeing where the signs have been peeled off of the building where they're out of business, and yet the capitalist in me is like, well, somebody that's been wanting to start a business can probably rent that space pretty cheaply now and get back in there. So that's part of capitalism. There's some sadness when people can't, stand in the business anymore. And then there's optimism for the young people that are coming in, or the new people that are coming in and jumping in there. And so as I was pondering that, I was also thinking that this time we're in is it's gonna be really bizarre, because there's almost here, I'm gonna throw that word out. If you use it 3 or 4 times, it becomes yours. There's a bifurcation even in our thoughts of whether we wear masks, whether this coronavirus is getting better or it's getting worse. But one of the economists that's really kept us between the lines for you all over the time is Brian Westbury. He shows up on a lot of those talk shows on the stock market on a regular basis. But I noticed that they had put this, and we can get you a copy of this COVID-19 tracker out on their website. And I saw some really encouraging data there. The news has been talking about the spike in the cases of coronavirus, but what really is going on is the number of deaths are still trending downward. And so what it tells me as kind of a numbers guy is that we didn't have the number of tests that we had back in April when we had the high number of deaths. And so the death rate is dropping, even though the amount of cases is increasing. And it just tells me that's a function that we just have a lot more testing going on. And why that's going to impact the economy is we were intending to go to Maine, is where we intended to go. And when I got online to decide to go there, they required us to have a COVID test within 72 hours of going into Maine. And I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. I don't know where we would get it, because we were going in the RV and it takes more than 72 hours to get there. And so I was like, you know what, I'll just go west. I'll just go somewhere else. And so what that means to Maine's economy is, I'm probably not the only one thinking that way. Is like, I don't really want the hassle. I don't want somebody jamming something in my nose just so I can come into your state. And so that capital that we would have dropped off in Maine is going to get dropped off somewhere else. And that's capitalism. So the governments that are making different decisions, it's all good. Everybody, you and I as consumers will decide where to spend our money, period.
In addition to that, with COVID and things changing, our boys are about ready to return to school, and maybe some of you have folks who are going to return to school. I saw where IU is going to be operating a little differently this year. They're going to open up August 24th. They're going to run to November 30th in person, and then November 30th to December 20th, they're going to be online. And then from there to mid-February, they're going to be online. And then a big question mark if they will come back or not. But for the opportunistic person, check this out. There are tests being made. I help run a youth cycling team. And there's a website where you can plug in your data and it says, hey, yeah, come to practice or don't come to practice. And so there are innovators out there who are taking advantage of this, saying, hey, how can we help people do life now? What technology can be used to help speed up and allow a person to go to this state or that state? And so stay focused on what we can do and what you can do. If anything, I think COVID has taught us to be flexible. Keith, he had an experience with his family on vacation where he's got to be flexible now. And there are things that you can do. And I just want to encourage you to stay positive on it, because these kids going back to IU, they're only going to offer a single room occupancy in a dorm. And I think our mental health right now is critically important. We got to be out there. We got to get outside. We got to see each other. We're relational beings. And so I wrote down a couple things I thought could be fun for you to do. As a kid, my mom in the summertime always made sun tea. Anybody here ever had sun tea? I mean,
Debbie makes it all the time. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. And so, when it's hot as blazes like it's been out there, what a perfect time to make some sun tea on your back porch or front patio. And these are the types of things that we can do. Nobody's taking this stuff away from us. One of my biggest joys during COVID, and right now, even when it's blazes hot out there, is to walk around my neighborhood. Just the other day, some of you may have heard from me. I decided to make my phone calls as I was walking, and I was stacking stuff together. You can stack stuff together too. I was making my phone calls. I was enjoying the creation, and I was getting some exercise in all at the same time. When you walk around your neighborhood, you see your neighbors, or maybe you see a piece of landscaping that you're like, huh, you know what? I'd like to add that to my yard. And so just staying positive here and looking for things that you can do. Want to encourage you with that, because there's going to be plenty of change. Like Keith was talking about, there's just going to be some stuff that you never even thought of happening. Keith never thought that he couldn't go to Maine, but if by staying positive, you're going to see opportunities that you still can do.
I'm positive that I'm going to research which companies are going to profit from Maine not letting me in and make some money on that situation. But I have an idea who that might be. And so you can rest assured somebody's going to figure out how to get you into Maine, whether the government can or not. But whoever figures that out, they'll make a little bit of money. And it's a pretty straightforward thought process. But you can take whatever lemons life brings you and turn it into that lemonade, or throw it in your sun tea, because the possibilities out there are huge. And so when you're told no, if all the entrepreneurs that ever existed in America that made America the great place that is beyond our freedom, if they'd all just taken the no that somebody told them, then who knows? You know, we probably all have some oxen and some handheld plows and be plowing our acre of, you know, whatever. And which is, I'm not saying that's not good. I'm just saying that we wouldn't have the possibilities we have today.
And this is such a global crisis. I mean, the European stock indexes haven't been that great. The emerging countries out there haven't been that great, but this is a worldwide problem, worldwide pandemic. And we got the whole world of optimists out there thinking, what can we do? And so these solutions, you as an investor especially, you're not contained by just what you see in your own state and in your own neighborhood. You can travel a lot of places by being an investor.
And I think it even changes your attitude. You know, Doug, I was telling you, I was looking at the split between different sorts of assets. And when I was going through the commodities, just looking at what's going on with those, it forces me to think about those people that deal in those commodities. And so most of the farm commodities they've been a declining value in those crops. And so it suggests to me that farmers are probably struggling. I don't live anywhere near a farmer, but by knowing what's going on with that market, I can basically know that the farmers are probably struggling a little bit. And so if I know the farmers are struggling, I know that's an anxiety to them. And so paying attention to what's going on in the economy can even help you figure out what's going on in the lives of others and be an encourager to those.
Well, like a farmer, and I get to hang out with farmers during the summertime. I get to hang out with two families. And so like a farmer, I want to just encourage you on one of Keith's phrases in life. I steal it from him all the time, is just keep the faith. Sometimes we can't see what's out there, but if you take a step forward, I guarantee you'll be better off for doing it. And so anyway, we really appreciate everybody who joins this call, and everybody who doesn't join this call. We appreciate you. And just thanks for allowing us to do this business and to serve you. If you guys have questions, if there are things on your mind, things that bug you, we want to hear from you. And we want your feedback, because it really makes a difference in what we're doing and what the future looks like for Gimbal Financial. Amanda, Keith, you guys got anything else before we sign off?
Hey, you guys mind if I jump on here from wherever I am next week and we'll figure out where I ended up?
Looking forward to seeing where you end up or where you're at.
Well, it sure is good seeing everybody.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye-bye.